Welcome to the Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli Western Championship PIR Speed Tour Portland Race 2. Let's check in with some of the drivers at the fan walk and get this race going.
I thought you'd be further ahead in the championship points this season.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you and I both. I had a DNF at Sonoma with just a freak deal, a part failure. So that really hurt us, and then had a battery malfunction at Laguna Seca, and Laguna Seca only being one race, with the first race being canceled. Definitely didn't play into my favor, I don't think. So, no, you're right. I kind of, after starting off Thunder Hill so strong with a 2 and a 1, 2 races this weekend, 2 races in Vegas, and then the 1 race at COTA. So the only choice is to pretty much be on the podium or win from here on out.
Tim Carroll getting super fast.
Oh yeah.
You're I think the only M1 SLR car in the field.
Yeah.
But I just noticed that just the last couple races seems like you've really turned it on.
It's the Kool-Aid that M1 sells.
It is.
It totally is the Kool-Aid. Yeah, but it's been good. We've been really happy with the setup we've been doing. They've been giving us a lot of coaching and all that kind of stuff, and we just been doing what they say to do, and it's helping.
We're getting ready to drop the hammer here at PIR. It's a good time.
And is this your pre-race ritual?
It is. Coffee and cigarettes is what I'm known for. This is what I do. But I don't get tired, and I'm an old school hammer dropper. So
and you got your son in this race as well?
Absolutely. So Cole Moore, my boy, he's here, and he's catching right on. He's driving TA2 car, one of the Nate Clower cars, and I'm driving this Chris Evans Racing team car prepped by Jeff Jefferson, and couldn't be happier with the team, and the whole vibe is awesome. I'm a asphalt NASCAR short track racer, and I came over and tried this out, and it's just, I ain't never had this much fun in a race car, so this won't be the last time.
So I believe your dad was with us last race, and he just said this is so much fun, you got to do it too?
Yeah, man. I've been wanting to race in the Trans Am Series for a long time, so finally got the opportunity to do it with Nate Clower Motorsports. Couldn't do it without my dad and his support. Really just thrilled to get in the race and see what it's all about, see how these guys race and see where we finish up.
So David Hampton's been running with us all over the country, but now you're back to your home state. How's that feel?
Welcome to Oregon. This is so nice. I mean, we're not blazing hot, we're warm, but this is just about right.
Now, you were telling me that this is where you started your racing career, is that correct?
2006, I bought my first Porsche. We had a half a day of driving, and from then on, it was, how do I do more of this? And so it's taken a long time to get to this point, but it's just been a whole bunch of fun. It's a challenge. It's a real mental challenge, and it's a physical challenge. It just depends. But we've been really blessed this year. We've gone over on the East Coast. We've done the national circuit. We've done some bucket list tracks. We're headed over to the East Coast again to do Watkins Glen and then Canadian Tire, and then we do the rest of the West Coast series and end up down in Texas. I mean, knock me over with a feather. It's pretty awesome.
Yesterday's TA2 winner Barry Bowes hit the wall in this morning's practice. Troy and his team have been working hard to fix the car to make the race. Well, after yesterday's race, the points in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 series have shuffled. The top 5 is Ken Sutherland in first with 516 points. In second now is Michael LaPaglia with 508. Tim Barber is third with 491, and then tied for fourth is Kyle Kelly with 476 and Tim Lynn with 476. The drivers tend to treat the Sunday race differently than the Saturday race. With these races being double headers, they go into the Saturday race a little bit more conservatively, knowing they can fix their car if something happens in the Sunday race. So anything can happen in these Sunday races. Let's see what happens at the end of this race and where the championship points shake out with only 3 races left to go after today's race. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Portland International Raceway, the PIR Speed Tour. You see Chris Evans, our pole position, over John Moore and XGT, and then Tim Carroll and Michael LaPaglia leading the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series in SGT. We had late greens yesterday, which I absolutely love, as you see here coming to the tower. So there's the green for the XGT. Now looks like another late green for the TA2 SGT. There goes the green And now it's the drag race down to turn one. We see J.C. Monet pull out, but it's Tim Carroll. And then Tim Barber, Michael LaPaglia side by side. There's Barry Bowes and Ken Sutherland side by side. Barry Bowes, Osseo Data TRB Autosport, able to get him repaired and back on the track. So good hustle there from Troy and his team. Everybody come through turn 4 well. We see Tim Lynn in the back in a different car than yesterday's car, his B car. But there we see a big shuffling as Tim Barber in second place, right on board right now with Kyle Kelly. Side by side with Caleb Schrader going through 7. And a big scrum happening behind him with Hostetler and Troy Ermish. Now on board, Michael LaPaglia, who's fallen back 2 places since the start of the race with Barry Bowes right behind him. So there's our leaders, Chris Evans, John Moore. Then let's see who takes it around the carousel. So Tim Carroll, Tim Barber, Ken Sutherland, Michael LaPaglia, Barry Bowes, Jim Guthrie, and Caleb Schrader. Kyle Kelly, Troy Ermish, Hostetler. So it is shaking up already in the first lap. So Tim Carroll leading the first lap. Then Tim Barber, Ken Sutherland. Ken Sutherland and Tim Barber in the same position they were in yesterday. They got at it. A little bit of contact, which knocked the camera off of Tim Barber's rear camera. Looks like Emma Sutherland heard from our race commentary, and somebody has moved the camera down, so a little bit better angle there with Ken Sutherland. The car sounds great. This is his home track, so we expect good things as we see Barry Bowes and Michael LaPaglia riding on board. With Barry Bowes, he had a lot of rear end damage with that contact, but doesn't seem to have done anything to his speed. No position changes in the top 5 this lap. Caleb Schrader putting a gap on, but now it's John Moore and Chris Evans going into turn 1. Right on board with John Moore, the Central Welding Supply, JM Environmentals, Ford Mustang in XGT. We talked to John earlier at the Fan Walk Grid Walk. He looks relaxed. Looks like he's got a good car. Then Tim Carroll starting to gap Tim Barber. And Barry Bowes looks to have a faster car, wanting to get around Michael LaPaglia. Like we saw in yesterday's race, Portland is a tough circuit to pass. You've really got to make some chess moves 3 corners ahead to set yourself up to make a pass. Michael LaPaglia, Papini's Garage Fast Auto, Howe Ford Mustang, North County Sand and Gravel of Murrieta, California. Doing really well, moving up to second in the points. And there is first in points right in front of him. So very important for Michael LaPaglia to finish ahead of Ken Sutherland. And Tim Barber, who's third in points, ahead of Ken Sutherland and Michael LaPaglia. There's Jim Guthrie, Cole Moore, Troy Ermish. Ooh, Ken Sutherland getting a little wiggly there. Michael LaPaglia right behind. Ken Sutherland, like we were saying, has more experience on this track than anybody else in the field. He's taken the faster line. Michael LaPaglia trying to put his nose in there, but that's going to cost him some speed. But not enough to let Barry Bowes around. Now Barry's right behind him, as we can see there at the top of your screen, trying to draft him. Ooh, does get a good draft. But LaPaglia outbreaks into a very difficult 10 and 11. But Tim Carroll gapping the field, as does Tim Barber now. There's our fight for the overall lead. Ooh, John Moore getting right behind Chris Evans. Had to make evasive movers. And that actually kind of cost John Moore a little bit of his momentum, but no contact, which we like early on in the race. Watch out for John Moore. That car looks hooked up. You can see the camera struggling there with focus. That is actually the vibration from the TA2 cars coming by that camera stand. They really do make that much noise that it's going to knock that camera on its tripod unstable. Back on board with Barry Bowes. Side with Michael LaPaglia, able to make the pass there on LaPaglia going into turn 1. That was actually set up back from turn 7, and that's kind of the chess playing that you have to play here at Portland International Raceway. You will hear me take some breaks just because I want to hear what's going on in the cars and let you hear how wonderful these cars sound, especially as the drivers go through that 4-gear standard age shift pattern of these transmissions. No driver aids in these TA2 cars. Back on board with Ken Sutherland. Section 4A, 5, 6, all kinds of different choices there. They have to feather the throttle. Very difficult track to run with momentum is Portland International Raceway. But look at that, Ken Sutherland already on Tim Barber. Let's go side by side. Tim Barber on the right, Ken Sutherland on the left. It's almost harder to be in a Tim Barber's position because you have nothing to go off of. You just have to hit your mark. Ken Sutherland can see where Tim is braking and try to outbrake him a little bit or try to hit a little bit of a better line. But these two have gone at it back and forth the last couple of races. Hitting 152 miles an hour there. There's John Moore. Then Tim Carroll. About a 3.5 second gap to Tim Barber. And Michael LaPaglia falling behind Barry Bowes. Now let's listen in on Kyle Kelly. Kelly's car always sounds so good. You see the fire coming out the side of Ken Sutherland's car with Kahlberg Racing. And Wyatt Fire, but now on board with the Azio Data car, Barry Bowes. I love those yellow Dayglow gloves. Let's see if he can do anything. A lot of times when cars like Tim Barber and Ken Sutherland are fighting like that, it slows them down a little bit to let somebody like Barry Bowes catch up. And Kyle Kelly right behind LaPaglia. LaPaglia's car is looking loose in the rear end there, coming through turn 12. There's a good shot of the gaps. So Kyle Kelly and LaPaglia coming through the Shelton chicane, a very difficult section of the track. They made that chicane, basically, the old track went all the way down, but the cars were running such high speeds that they would hit turn 4. What we call turn 4 would have been turn 2 back in the day. Just way too fast and way too dangerous. So they put in that chicane. And I think that just makes for better passing areas and more exciting races. Now they're in turn 7. Lots of different lines through turn 7. But we're seeing here this helmet cam from Kyle Kelly. Lots of work it takes to drive these cars. Very physical. On board, this is Michael LaPaglia's rear camera that the Papini's Garage fellows give to us. And you can see how loose these cars are and just guiding through around this turn 10, 11, 12 complex. Get real close to that wall, trying not to scrub any speed. But here we are, the fight between Tim Barber, Ken Sutherland. The fight for second and third, Tim Carroll has just kind of pulled away from everybody in his CRDMFG.com, Chevrolet Camaro, PDIDiesel.com M1 car. And the gap between LaPaglia and Kyle Kelly. But look at this. This gap, Ken Sutherland, Tim Barber, still shaking the camera with the ground pounding of these TA2 cars. Now Ken Sutherland taking the faster line. We saw this in yesterday's race. That is a faster line, and then you try to just drag race all the way down to turn 10. I don't think he's got it in him. Whew. Look at that, fast hands going in just a little bit too heavy there midway through turn 11. But doing everything he can just to scrub some time, drive these TA2 cars with momentum, but that gives Barry Bowes a chance to climb up there. There's the leader in TA2, the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 series. Then Tim Barber in that number 33 Dig Motorsports Ford Mustang. 2 cars in this field with Dig Motorsports, but they hope to be one of the arrive and drives next year. So looking to Dig Motorsports. I also heard from Tim Lynn and Nick Clower that they may be doing Arrive and Drive next season also. So lots of great options for us. And this championship is heating up. So make sure you check out the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series Western Championship next year, 2025. We will be releasing the schedule soon, and from what I'm hearing and seeing, it looks amazing. You can see a little bit of damage to the right front of Ken Sutherland's splitter. It's hanging down a little bit lower than it should. Not sure what caused that, but that might slow down Ken Sutherland. Tim Carroll, still large gap. Ken Sutherland, really, every lap you can see a different line going through 7, trying to figure out where he can get Tim Barber. And all that does is give Barry Bowes a chance to get up behind him, draft him. But then Michael LaPaglia right behind Bowes. So this is 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series. Tim Carroll is just that far ahead of this group. So that is our current points leader, Ken Sutherland. And Michael LaPaglia there, 2nd in points. Back on board with Barry Bowes, going through the gears from 2nd to 3rd, down to 4th. Hitting right at about 155 miles an hour there, then shoving it back into 3rd to try to go around this carousel to carry enough speed to get hard on the throttle here for this long straightaway. This track can beat up some gearboxes and rear differentials. There's our leader, Tim Carroll, M1 race cars, that number 46. Let's ride on board, see what he's doing, because he's got a secret here. You can see the speed there down on his miles an hour. You can see the telemetry where he's hitting the throttle, having to feather the throttle through 4A, 5. Now it'll be hard onto the throttle into 6, brake, downshift. A lot of shifting, but man, Tim Carroll really showing us how he's doing in that CRDMFG.com, PDIDiesel.com Chevrolet Camaro Team SLR M1. 154 miles an hour. You can see how difficult it is, but look at that gap just increasing. And it looks like they might be coming up onto some lap traffic. You can see, yeah, there we go. The fantastic flag crew here at Portland. Absolutely love working with them. Their safety crew, always on the ball. They are huge racing enthusiasts when you go and talk to them. So, you know, they put out the blue flags. They're really quick on the flag, so we really appreciate that. Cascade, everything you guys do, the local SCCA, thank you for all that you do, and the Portland International Raceway Safety Crew. Back on board with Ken Sutherland trying to get around Tim Barber. It looks like Ken, again, this day, has the faster car, but Tim Barber just smart enough. His racing intelligence is very high, knows how to not let cars by him. just hits his mark, does what he needs to do in the passing areas to not let anybody by him. And then what happens, as we saw yesterday, is that person behind him gets frustrated and almost has to force the issue. So yeah, they're coming up on lap traffic of Tim Lynn, who did have to go into his B car, and he was saying he was struggling with that B car in practice. But doing really well in the points is Tim Lynn, who is tied for 4th with 476. He needs every point he can get to win this championship. So there's Tim Barber behind Tim Lynn. It's 3 Tims in a row. We right on board with Tim Lynn with his roof options car, Ford Mustang. Doing the wise option of letting the faster cars through, living to fight another day. There goes Kyle Kelly. So that's basically the top 6 in this race. And they have pulled away a little bit from Caleb Schrader at this point. So look at that gap now. Tim Carroll, Tim Barber, Ken Sutherland, Barry Bowes, Michael LaPaglia, Kyle Kelly. That's about a 5.5 second gap. And here comes Caleb Schrader to try to get around Tim Lynn. And there's Cole Moore. Really impressed with what we're seeing from Cole Moore. We want to see more of the Moores. At this point, it looks like everybody's trying a little bit something different at turn 7. See where they have the advantage. Michael LaPaglia is kind of the chess player in this field, the driver behind Barry Bowes. He kind of lets the race come to him. He knows that a lot of things happen early on in the race, especially with this pack of cars of Tim Barber, Ken Sutherland. So expect him to kind of save the car for the latter stages in the race. But Ken Sutherland now really haven't fallen far behind Tim Barber, but there's the leader in TA2, Tim Carroll. And you can see the gap, Tim Barber and then Ken Sutherland. Ken Sutherland now finding himself being preyed upon by Barry Bowes. I wonder if that right front splitter is affecting his speed or momentum in any way. The Kahlberg Racing Wyatt Fire Chevy Camaro of Ken Sutherland from Sherwood, Oregon. Barry Bowes side by side with Ken Sutherland. Ken a little bit deeper on the brakes, but Barry Bowes showing some speed, but he had to get on the binders, and that puts LaPaglia right behind him when he was very off balance there going through 11. Now on board with Kyle Kelly. Ken Sutherland locking up his brakes, giving Barry Bowes now going side by side into 3. Ken Sutherland able to hold him off, but not for long. Barry Bowes is going to find a way, as you see him just kind of feathering through there at 4A. Glad that Ken Sutherland is sponsored by Wyatt Fire. We're seeing a lot of fire coming out his stacks there on the side. On board with Kyle Kelly. PK&K Properties, upracing.com Ford Mustang. There's our leader, Chris Evans. That number 92 Central Welding Supply Ford Mustang. So now some big gaps. Expect Barry Bowes and the three behind him to try to get around Ken Sutherland, because they see that that gap is increasing. They are the faster cars over Ken Sutherland right now. And they don't want this race to get away from them, because we saw no full course cautions in yesterday's race. So they may not be able to rely on some kind of like late caution in today's race, because they didn't see it yesterday. You can see him holding his hand out, just trying to get some wind to come through the cabin, cool him off a little bit. Had to put some left input as Michael LaPaglia now gets around Barry Bowes. On board with Michael LaPaglia. Now it's a drag race with Kyle Kelly and Barry Bowes side drafting each other. Kyle Kelly has the advantage going into one, being on driver's right. He holds it. Oh, and just a little bit of contact right at the apex. Kyle Kelly doing a really good job of hanging on to it, but you can see now that puts Caleb Schrader right behind him. So all this jockeying for position has slowed the third, fourth, fifth place cars as Michael LaPaglia hangs it out there. Like the RTR cars of Von Gittin Jr. So now we're on board with Caleb Schrader, who has all of a sudden found some speed. Very good driver is Caleb Schrader. The Consensus Healthcare Chevrolet Camaro. And then there's David Hampton in SGT and the Porsche getting in the middle of this. So we see the blue flag there of David Hampton, but this puts us in a weird predicament because that Porsche runs very similar lap times. He's from Bend, Oregon. He can outbrake and outmaneuver these TA2 cars, so they have to really find a good place to pass Hampton. So this may work out in Tim Carroll's favor, because Tim Barber gets behind this Porsche at not the most ideal time. You see the blue flag there, but he's got the power. Let's ride on board with David Hampton. On board with the AR Motorsports Porsche Cayman GT4 RS Club Sport of David Hampton. But I always talk about how the men and women in our paddock are the most interesting people in the world, and they are. And I have something to prove it. I've been seeing this post on social media for years, but this is David Hampton with Hampton Lumber out of Bend, Oregon. They have a lot of land around the Northwest for their lumber operation, and David Hampton is this guy that planted these trees just to make us smile. I'm sure you've seen it too. So good on you, David Hampton. I love seeing that. As now Ken Sutherland and Michael LaPaglia try to figure out a way around David Hampton. But like I said, it's very difficult because this Porsche is a little bit more nimble. And he doesn't have to give his spot off to anybody. He's in his own race, running actually now for the SGT Championship. But you see him there just in sportsmanship, like letting them around, because really he doesn't have any competition. His other two SGT competitors were with him yesterday, but dropped out of today's race. But Michael LaPaglia goes hard into 7, loses balance, almost hits he and Ken Sutherland, but somehow able to recover. So nice job from LaPaglia and Ken Sutherland. You can see, again, Kyle Kelly holding his hand out, trying to get some air. And now a huge change in the script because Barry Bowes has fallen way back. It looked like he was going to get around Ken Sutherland. Then trying to make that move at 11, he's fallen back now behind. He missed 2 places. So anything can happen very quickly as Michael LaPaglia now fighting for that podium position over Ken Sutherland. But look at that, both of them hanging it out there. So there's Tim Barber currently second in TA2, Ken Sutherland, Michael LaPaglia, Kyle Kelly, Barry Bowes, and Caleb Schrader moving in with Cole Moore right behind them too. So don't count out Cole Moore, who did really well in yesterday's race and doing well again in today's race. On board with Kyle Kelly. Michael LaPaglia side by side with Ken Sutherland. Ooh, a little bit of a touch there. Ken Sutherland goes wide at 10-11, regathers it, but there goes Kyle Kelly. They did go side by side into 11, and from that view, it looked like they were pretty equal. Not sure what the stewards are going to see there, but now Michael LaPaglia is in the 3rd position. Kyle Kelly 4th, Ken Sutherland 5th, Barry Bowes 6th, Caleb Schrader 7th. So there's 2nd place Tim Barber, 3rd place LaPaglia. This is shaking out, and all it's doing is bringing Cole Moore right into the fold. Cole Moore and his Nate Clower Motorsports Ford Mustang JM Environmental Services. On board with Michael LaPaglia's rear camera. Big shout out to Robert Papini for hooking us up with that camera. So there's our leader in TA2, Tim Carroll. About a 5-6 second gap, Tim Barber then LaPaglia. So let's ride on board in this Dig Motorsports Caleb Schrader Consonus Healthcare Chevy Camaro. Now on board with Ken Sutherland. Kahlberg Racing Wyatt Fire Chevrolet Camaro. Caleb looks relaxed in his Dig Motorsports Consonus Healthcare Chevy Camaro. Doing really well in the series. This is only his 3rd race with us, but doing really well, having some great finishes on the podium with us yesterday. So there's the leader, Tim Carroll, who just is basically hoping that there's no full course caution, because obviously he has the fastest car in the field, and anytime the people behind him are fighting, that just gives him a huge advantage. So right now it's just try to hit the lap traffic at the right time and hit your marks. He looks relaxed. The car sounds great. He says he has had the M1 Kool-Aid and sets the car up as they suggest, and the car performs as it should, as we're seeing today. I'm sure Scott Lagasse Jr. and his team at Team SLR M1 give him some good notes and tell him how to set up the car, which his team has done, and he's looking really fast today as Tim Carroll. Look at that. That's an increase of the gap, and Michael LaPaglia doesn't seem to do too much. Kyle Kelly getting away from Sutherland, but that puts Cole Moore right behind him. This is getting really interesting. So Caleb Schrader with Cole Moore right behind him. You can see him in the mirror, the white car in his mirror, and he's got a white car ahead of him. Barry Bowes being held together with that duct tape, the racer's tape there. But TRB Motorsports, Troy and his team had to work diligently to put that thing back together, and it looks like they've done a fantastic job. Barry Bowes, yesterday's winner in the TA2 Series. On board with him now with that ICO data, TRB Motorsports Ford Mustang. That gap just ever increasing, but Michael LaPaglia now closing in on Tim Barber. You can see a little bit of bodywork damage there, and that is gonna hurt Tim Carroll, Dig Motorsports Ford Mustang. Sorry, Tim Barber with TFB. That's going to hurt his top speed just a little bit. Michael LaPaglia ready to pounce as we ride on board with Tim Barber and Dig Motorsports. And again, Dig Motorsports looking for more drivers for a Arrive and Drive program for the rest of this season, but also 2025. And obviously they know how to set up fast cars. On board with Barry Bowes, looking in the rear, Cole Moore side by side there with Caleb Schrader making the pass, forcing Caleb Schrader off there. Drivers left at turn 7. Unfortunately, we don't have in-car from Cole Moore's car, in-car camera. It didn't work, so we would love to show that, but maybe next race. So there's our leader. Here is the gap. Maybe 8 seconds now, and Michael LaPaglia starting to get impatient, trying to get around Tim Barber, who I'm just going to crown now the hardest person to pass in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series Western Championship. So congratulations, Tim. You hold that honor, the toughest to pass. And this is a tough circuit to pass, so he's using that to his advantage. But look at that, Cole Moore now around Kyle Kelly. So Cole Moore really figuring these TA2 cars out in his first weekend. Doing really well, trying to go around Barry Bowes as we see him there right in the rear view mirror of Barry Bowes. So shaking up, you see there. Oh no, Kyle Kelly coming into pit lane. A little bit of smoke, so not sure what's happening there, but look at this, Cole Moore, Barry Bowes going side by side. Can he hold it? He does hold it. Now can he put the power down? He does. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. Cole Moore, Nate Clower Motorsports Ford Mustang, first weekend out. And again, Nate Clower is another one of those teams looking to do an arrive and drive program next season in 2025. Showing some really great cars and some good speed. So if you want to get involved, look for Dig Motorsports, who we're on board with now, DIG Motorsports, or Nate Clower. You will not find a better series, the men and women in this series, the sportsmanship, the camaraderie in the paddock, and the competitiveness on the circuit. You can hear his exhaust there. Just sounds like maybe just a little bit under power as they release JC Monet from pit lane. You can see the blue flags flying and Kyle Kelly's car in pit lane looks like he's out of the race. This is Michael LaPaglia side by side, and the one goes long. And somehow it seems Tim Barber knew that was going to happen. Now Michael LaPaglia has to let Tim Barber by. Per the rules there, if you miss that chicane, you cannot get an advantage, which he does, but now he's going to have to fight for a few more laps to try to make that back up. That's going to be so tough for LaPaglia. But some really good chess player. I think Tim Barber thought, Tim Barber didn't think Michael LaPaglia could slow it down in time, so he just kind of let him by and then didn't turn in until he was through. So some really good intellectual chess playing from Tim Barber as we ride on board Barry Bowes. So Tim Carroll back around Tim Lynn, then Tim Barber. And can LaPaglia close this gap again? Cole Moore showing Ken Sutherland a little something, as now they have to get around JC Monet, who is a very fast TA2 driver. That's going to be a difficult task. Right now, it looks like Cole Moore is the fastest driver in the field as he hits the apex of 7, trying to get around Ken Sutherland. Ken Sutherland not having it. You can see Cole Moore in his mirrors there a little bit. Trying to get a good draft from Ken Sutherland. When he locks it up, hanging it out is Ken Sutherland. What's going to happen here? Because now he's got JC Monet ahead of him. Michael LaPaglia back around Tim Lynn, behind Tim Barber, taking a little bit different line through 1 to set himself up for 2. Drifting through there again. We're seeing some drifting from that RTR looking Mustang. Let's see what Cole Moore can do here. JC Monet wisely just kind of lets everybody by. Thank you, JC. Tim Barber, Michael LaPaglia still have Tim Carroll in their view. They can see him sometimes on the track, and that's very motivating for these drivers. Michael LaPaglia behind Barber, on board with Barber, but Michael LaPaglia has the faster machine right now. But again, Tim Barber is very difficult to get around. You can see the gap here. Tim Carroll coming up on Sean Berardi from Petaluma, California with Berardi Motorsports Chevrolet Camaro. It's also Sean's first time with us. He is doing really well in the series, so welcome to him. But this is the fight for second and third. And second and third in points currently. Tim Barber, Michael LaPaglia. You see Tim Carroll around Sean Berardi. Tim Barber, everybody seems to just make it to 154 miles an hour there before they have to get on the brakes and downshift. I haven't seen anybody with a 155 or any kind of speed advantage there. Now you can see Tim Barber trying to get LaPaglia out of the draft. Not happening as they snake their way down to turn one. Side by side, Michael LaPaglia now has the advantage at the apex. Can he hold it through three as they drag race into four? And there we go, LaPaglia has it. That was a setup back from turn one into the braking zone to make the pass at turn three. Nice job from LaPaglia. So now, do we have enough left in this race for LaPaglia, who seems to have a fast car, to get to Tim Carroll? But let's see this mile per hour here down in the bottom middle. 130, 40, about 152. And now, where can LaPaglia find his way around Sean Berardi? Hopefully he can make it happen before turn one, or this might get interesting. You still see the Cascade corner workers hanging out the blue flag, which we appreciate, notifying Sean Berardi that the faster cars are in front. And it looks like he's going to let them by, but now there's Chris Evans mixing it up, our overall leader, mixing it up in this TA2 battle. Oh no, and who's this? Oh, Ken Sutherland into the pits. Ken Sutherland, who was fighting for second and doing really well in the points. That's going to really hurt him in the points because he's leading the championship in the points right now. But that's obviously not going to be able to be the case if these two drivers have a good finish. That's going to really hurt Ken Sutherland. And you can see now that gap increasing between LaPaglia and Tim Barber. On board, Michael LaPaglia's rear camera looking back at Tim Barber. Barely missing the wall there through one. You can hear how they're feathering the throttle there through turn 4 and 4A and 5. We right on board, or looking at, sorry, Michael LaPaglia, who does seem to be closing that gap now with Tim Carroll with about 13 laps to go. And I say about 13 laps because it all depends on where Chris Evans and John Moore are with XGT. And if they get around these leaders one more time, that will shorten their race. Because it is a 100-mile race for the leader. So there's Tim Carroll, Michael LaPaglia. The gap has dropped down to about 6 seconds. Maybe 5 seconds. There's Tim Carroll. Michael LaPaglia on the hunt. This gap has dropped drastically just in this lap. So when you never know what's happening, something could be happening with Tim Carroll, or he's just kind of letting the race come to him, driving comfortably. You know, like we always talk about, you want to win the race as slowly as you can. But right now, I'm sure his spotters are saying that Michael LaPaglia is the fastest car in TA2, and he's coming for you, Tim. So we may have a Mustang versus Camaro battle here for the end, but Michael LaPaglia going a little bit too deep, a little bit too hot. But really now about a 3-second gap. On board with Michael LaPaglia. The Papini's garage. So there's the leader, Tim Carroll. And you'll see Michael LaPaglia coming up right behind, just really closing that gap. It's so difficult to be in this position of Michael LaPaglia, to see the leader there, to know that you're closing in on the leader at some points in the track, and in other points it seems like he walks him a little bit. But that is the leader, Tim Carroll, straight ahead of him. The Papini's Garage Fast Auto. Northern County Sand and Gravel of Murrieta, California Ford Mustang. With the Howe chassis of Michael LaPaglia, trying to hunt down the M1 chassis of Tim Carroll, and I believe it's a Mike Cope chassis in Tim Barber right behind LaPaglia. So this 3 different chassis manufacturers fighting for the top 3. So we've got 10 laps to go, ladies and gentlemen, if it all shakes out like this. Ooh, that's under a 2-second gap now. I'm clocking it at a 1.8 seconds is Michael LaPaglia behind Tim Carroll. So it's one thing, like we've seen, to catch the driver ahead of you, but then it's a totally different task to try to pass him here at this very difficult passing Portland International Raceway. So you can see he's closing the gap just a little bit, but when they cross the line, it should be 8 laps to go. But again, remember, wherever Chris Evans is, ooh, and I see him back there, Chris Evans could shorten this race by a lap if he does get around these 2 drivers. And I'm sure that Michael LaPaglia's team is kind of alerting him to what's going on, to make your move as soon as you can. I'm just sorry I'm being quiet. I'm just trying to see anything, and I can't really see any huge advantages, but I do see Chris Evans closing in on these two, which might shorten the race. Gap seems to be about the same as last lap. You see Lonnie Hostetler there right in front of Tim Carroll with the Mr. Honey Motion CBD 5th Street Consulting Chevrolet Camaro of Lonnie Hostetler from Chandler, Arizona. But look, Lonnie's getting over, being race aware, so we appreciate that, Lonnie. That's Lonnie there in the Camaro right ahead. So, oh, see, he's just going right through one to let them by. We appreciate that, Lonnie. Here's our leaders in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series with 7 laps to go. I should say 6 or 7 because Chris Evans is closing in on these drivers. Looks like he has shortened this gap a little bit, has LaPaglia. Let's see what kind of top speed he's doing late in the race. 150. Still running 154s. But the fuel burn is out of the cars now. You know, the cars are a little bit lighter in the rear end. The weight of the fuel has left. And now it's these Pirelli P0s. Can they hold on with what I'm seeing 6 laps to go? Ooh, LaPaglia a little bit harder on the brakes. Tim Carroll still just hitting his mark, but the gap has decreased. Oh, it looks like John Moore went off there at turn 4. So Michael LaPaglia is setting himself up for the faster way through. Tim Barber doesn't seem to be giving Michael LaPaglia anything there at second. So now Michael, all he's got to worry about is hunting down Tim Carroll ahead of him. And that gap has shortened. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. Michael LaPaglia coming up to 5 laps to go. I'm seeing about 7/10 under a second in the DRS zone if we did that in Trans Am, which we do not. But he is now right behind Tim Carroll. As they come up on the lap traffic. Both of these drivers driving very smooth. They don't seem to be pressing anything at this time. Tim Carroll taking the defensive line, but LaPaglia taking the quicker line. Let's go side by side. Michael LaPaglia on the left, Tim Carroll on the right. 3 of Guthrie's garage, letting the drivers by, but you can see Tim Carroll out of turn 2 getting really squiggly, as does Michael LaPaglia coming out of 7. They're getting real late in this race. Where is Chris Evans behind him? So here it is, Tim Carroll, Michael LaPaglia, Jim Guthrie. There's Chris Evans. Can still make this very interesting. He could shorten the race for Tim Carroll, which I'm sure Tim Carroll would love to have happen with just 3 laps left to go. Now it's just Michael LaPaglia seems to have the faster car. It's can he get around Tim Carroll? This is one place that you can do it. Set yourself up for a drag race into turn 10. It's who can come out of this corner better. So we ride on board now with Chris Evans, who could play spoiler to this. Chris Evans' car looking really fast, doing really well. His top speed going in is 165. So about 10, 11 miles an hour faster than these TA2 cars. But look at this, Michael LaPaglia right behind him. Let's see, Chris Evans may be given the white flag here. We're seeing the blue. Yeah, there it is. There's the white flag for Chris Evans. So these two, Tim Carroll, Michael LaPaglia, they have not been given the white flag. So Chris Evans, I don't think he can pass them in this lap. So he's not going to shorten their race. They've got 2 laps to go. But they're going to see the white flag next time by. On board with Michael LaPaglia. So this is it. He's got maybe one more chance at this. Can he get a good drag race coming down into turn 10? Let's look at that mile per hour. Still 154. But look at how he's just getting right up behind Tim Carroll. Looks like Tim Carroll might have a little bit better high-end speed. So we should see a white flag here. Yeah, there's the white flag. Last lap, LaPaglia. And Chris Evans falling way back. Not sure what's happened there. But here they go. Oh yeah, Chris Evans having some mechanical. Can he finish this race? John Moore somewhere behind him. Not sure where John Moore is, but Chris Evans really struggling. So there goes Chris Evans. Oh, and John Moore was right there. Wow, that could have been close, but we're back on board with Michael LaPaglia. Tim Lynn letting both of them have it at 7. But let's see if LaPaglia, this is as close as he's been. Can he do anything on this drag race down to turn 10? Who's later on the brakes? Smoother through the carousel. LaPaglia right up behind him. Let's see who can get on the gas. I think Tim Carroll has the advantage, but can Tim Carroll hold on to it? Yes, he does. What a race. But Tim Carroll, his first victory in the Cube 3 Architecture TA2 Series. Congratulations to him. Michael LaPaglia finished the 2nd. Tim Barber goes across 3rd. And I believe, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, Cole Moore is going to finish 4th. In his first weekend in TA2, Barry Bowes, then Caleb Schrader. So way to go. So we ride on board with Tim Carroll, waving to the fans and the corner workers. his first victory. Congratulations to Troy and TRB. But look, there's Cole Moore, Barry Bowes, Caleb Schrader. Nice job. Chris Evans and John Moore side by side, waving at each other, the good friends that they are. So nice job. Great race. Let's go down to the Trans Am truck and talk to the drivers and get some congratulations.
Tim Carroll.
All right.
Man, unbelievable. How was that?
That was awesome. Like, that was our first Trans Am win. We were just, I mean, everything was just clicking perfect. And then towards the end, we saw the pack start to show up, like, all right, time for some qualifying laps. And we got that going, and then I think we were able to keep them at bay. It would have been hard to race them, I think, but overall for our first win, man, it was awesome.
Great job. Congratulations.
Exciting? Okay, good.
You made it fun.
Paglia, honestly, that was one of the best TA2 races I've ever seen.
Oh,
I feel like maybe a couple more laps you might have gotten them.
yeah, rolled the dice on that one. Tim was driving awesome, and I kind of told myself, if he makes a mistake, I just want to be there to capitalize on it, or if there's a gap, I'll take it. I definitely didn't want to force it, but he didn't crack. He just he drove awesome and held me off there. I put on a big charge and put in a pretty big effort the last 10, 11 laps, and that didn't have a chance.
Hey, Tim Carroll, come over here. I want to get a two-shot of you guys because really, let's talk about those last 5 laps. I'm sure your spotters were like, hey, he's coming.
I saw the colors coming. I'm like, oh, time for qualifying. And it was one of those, like, little bit of jackrabbit I had to do. And I'm like, I knew a couple areas where I could get him, but he was always getting me under the brakes into one, but I think I could keep some distance on him coming through 10, 11, 12, but I think we had a little more drive, but it was just like, okay, qualifying time again.
Yeah.
So is that so frustrating, just waiting for him to make a mistake and he's just not doing it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's like not frustrating, but like, you think like, all right, good, like we got 15 laps, so that's a lot of laps, and then in a hurry it's 9, and then it's 5. You're like, oh man, I'm really running out of time. And then we got into some lappers. I'm like, with lappers, you never know if it's going to play in your favor or not. And I felt like it was pretty equal. Like nothing really played into my favor, except maybe the Porsche SGT a little bit. But yeah, it was nerve-wracking for sure.
And then I think Chris Evans kind of laid back to give you guys like another lap because he was on pace to pass you guys.
Okay.
And then it would have been one more lap, but then he kind of laid back, so you got a white flag later than anybody.
I would have been fine with the white flag a little sooner, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it was good. Good racing. It's good. Yeah, dude,
congratulations.
Good job.
Well, you're on the podium again. Oh, here's Chris.
Good run. Yeah. Good run. Pictures.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
oh boy, here we are.
How about that? Nice job. How's it feel?
Well, it was pretty good. Physically, I'm holding up pretty good for an old guy. But somehow or other, we got offline going into one on the last lap, and I think we bent an axle tube or busted out a trailing arm. So it was a lot of rear steer, way more than the back end just coming around. But I was able to limp it in, and I don't know what happened to the 5 car, but the rest of these guys, they did a fantastic job. It was fun getting around them, at the end there. So yeah, hats off to them.
Yeah, they have.